Chapter 2, Right as Rain. The thing Fritz says when he's lying to your face about how he's feeling. Ah, the woods, the perfect place to train. And they both sat there, grown up, yet children at heart. And it was summer. Warm, beautiful summer. When I reached the end of the fairy tale, I stopped to look down at the pages, thoughtful. I'm not sure how I felt about this one. I snapped the book shut and gazed at the cover quietly. The Snow Queen is one of Emmeline's fairy tales. She just recently received it for her birthday and allowed me to borrow it for my reading sessions. I turned my attention to the gravestone I am sitting in front of. Though the sky is dark, the inscription on the grave is illuminated by my lantern. You're reading fairy tales to Delora's grave. Oh. I need a second. Oh, the tears. They've started. There you go. Episode 2. That's how long it took. That's how long it took. Oh, it is Delora's name. I hope that you and Larea enjoyed the fairy tale at least. You're headed for Larea too. Oh, please stop. Oh no. I needed more tissues for this route. Why am I so unprepared? I have been reading at this gravesite for the last 4 months. Originally, I only came here to set flowers on the graves, but then Fritz suggested I try speaking to everyone. I was skeptical at first, but it turns out that reading helps lighten my mood when I am here. I like to imagine Delora and her daughter listening to the fairy tales as I read them aloud. Something soft lands on my head, and I stop to gaze up at the sky. A single droplet makes its way down a leaf and lands on my nose. Yeah, it's just me crying over here. Rain? It's been a while since it rained, hasn't it? I turn to glance at Fritz. He has been leaning against a tree for the past half hour, keeping a lookout for danger while I read. Amazing, isn't it? Even in summer we have these rainy days. He glances up at the sky and cocks his head, a soft smile on his lips. Have I ever told you that I love the rain? No, I had no idea. I also like the rain. I pick up both the lantern and book and stand up. My gaze flickers briefly to the 4 gravestones lined up in a row. Garland, Delora, Parfait, and Mother. I've already set lilies on all 4, as I do every month. Fritz always accompanies me here on these days. Oftentimes, he stands guard from somewhere nearby with a melancholy look on his face. Well, now you know. When I was a child and my father wasn't home, I used to run outside and catch raindrops on my tongue. He always scolded me for it. He said I'd catch a cold. It is hard to imagine a time when Alcaster worried for his son. Alcaster, the previous commander of the Order of Caldera and Fritz's father, has been banished from Angielle for more than 2 years. No one has seen him since he disappeared. I don't know why that made me think, but I'm just wondering now from last episode when the witch used that mist potion. That implies that any magic that was bottled, stored or whatever, before the crystals broke, still works. Is there any kind of magic in bottles that, can inflict curses again? Or anything else for that matter? I don't know. I'm worried that Fritz's dad's gonna come back and try to bring Varg back and stuff. I don't know. I'm just curious and worried. Alright, Right, no one's seen him since he disappeared. Sometimes I wonder if Fritz ever wishes to see him again. But considering everything that happened between them, I doubt their reunion would be a happy one. I turned my thoughts back to our conversation. And did you ever catch a cold?
Yes, more than a few times. I enjoyed those sick days, though. My father would begrudgingly make me tea, and the two of us would talk about his adventures as a knight. Those were good days. Huh. I feel like an old man when I reminisce like this.
I poke Fritz in the shoulder with a teasing smile. Well, your hair matches at least. Because 23 is old.
Ancient in the eyes of a child,
Cries an 28-year-old. He takes my hand as another droplet lands on my head. The slight chill in the air gives me more reason to sidle up to him. I press myself to his side and smile when he wraps an arm around my waist. He takes the lantern from me and holds it up to light our way through the forest clearing. The two of us are at the outskirts when he turns to me.
Do you mind if I escort you to the palace and meet up with you later, Princess?
What did you just call me?
Sorry, the title just comes so naturally. Anyway, would that be all right with you, Lucette?
And where will you be going?
I need to do some cleaning at the manor. Then after that, I need to gather a few materials for Jurian.
I glance up at the sky again. I am able to see it more clearly through the canopies now. It looks cloudier, darker. The rain has picked up. My family has dinner with some esteemed guests tonight. If I run that errand with Fritz, there is a possibility I will get caught in the rain and show up late. Though my presence is not required, it might be better for me to be there. I pause to consider the warmth of Fritz at my side and falter. But being beside him like this is nice, especially because he has been so busy lately. I mean, he just gave up his responsibility to spend time with you. I feel like we should maybe reciprocate a little bit. I think Dad would understand. I hope. It is not as if I need to be at the dinner tonight, and I haven't been able to spend much time with Fritz, so this is fine.
Oh, you're not busy today?
Not any busier than normal. It is not as if I will be gone for the rest of the night. And besides... I lean in closer. It is remarkable how warm he is, even now. I would much rather spend time with you while you are still here. You have a tendency to disappear when I'm not watching you.
Oh?
If I take my eyes off of you for too long, you vanish into thin air.
Every good knight knows how to be inconspicuous. Besides...
He drums his fingers gently against my hip and raises an eyebrow.
Sometimes you see more interesting things cloaked in shadow.
You make it sound as if you are spying on people.
I don't spy on people, Lucette. I'm just observant.
This is true. Fritz is incredibly perceptive. He knows more about me than anyone else. The image of you hiding in the shadows is rather ominous.
Not at all alluring.
Ahem. Well. He pauses to face me. His eyes, so golden against his dark skin, seem to shine beneath the shade of the canopies. Neither of us speaks. Fritz brings his thumb to my bottom lip and slowly runs his thumb across it. Woo.
Lots of things happen in the shadows. Part of the allure is that whatever happens is a secret, don't you think?
Fritz looks at me for a long moment. Then he grins.
You never cease to amuse me.
Amuse you? He backs away from me and holds out a hand. I take it, allowing him to pull me through the last of the trees and into the town square. It's a mighty warm rain we're having. I am not amusing.
You wear your emotions on your sleeve, Princess. It's precious.
I simply prefer honesty. I still have difficulty opening up to people, and I would rather not show weakness in front of anyone, but I have gotten better. Fritz?
Yes, Lucette.
You're honest with me too, right?
Of course.
His slow answer gives me pause, but I say nothing. Fritz's eyes are already on our surroundings, watching everything and everyone around us warily. The rain has begun to pick up, so I hold the book closer to my chest as we make our way toward his manor. We only stop to pick up food. The streets grow colder as we walk. A bitter chill hangs in the air, and I draw closer to Fritz without thinking. He wordlessly drapes an arm on my shoulder and holds the lantern closer. He glances up at the sky, a fond smile on his lips. Fritz is warm as sunshine, and yet he really does love cold, rainy days, doesn't he? The two of us make our way back to his manor in peaceful silence. Ah, yes, it's been a long time since I've been to your manor. It's so nice. Inside, Fritz takes everything I have and sets it down on the table. He lays out a meal for the two of us and then takes a seat at the table beside me. The meal is thankfully simple, nothing but a variety of small sandwiches. The simplicity is nice for a change after so many extravagant meals at the palace. So what sort of cleaning do you need to do?
There are some items in my room I need to gather and return to the Order. Then I need to organize some documents for Jurian.
And when that is all done, what will you do? Fritz stares at me blankly. The look takes me by surprise. Will you have any other obligations to the Order?
Oh.
He smiles a little sheepishly.
There might be a few more things, but I should be done by the end of the week.
Is that because I came over for sandwiches? The room quiets as we focus on the meal. I am not bothered by the silence. I have always found these moments of quiet relaxing, especially in Fritz's company. The silence persists until Fritz gets to his feet and smiles down at me.
How about some warm tea for the cold weather?
That would be nice, thank you.
All right, give me a few moments then.
He is on his way to the kitchen when he stops and glances over his shoulder.
Feel free to make yourself at home.
He disappears into the kitchen, leaving me by myself. When he is gone, I am aware of how absolutely still the manor is. The only sounds I hear are coming from outside. I make my way to the window and stare outside baffled. It is pouring. The streets are mostly empty, filled with nothing but deep puddles. No wonder it is so quiet. I turn away from the window and begin to wander around the living room. Not much has changed since I first came here 2 years ago. The house is still impersonal, even when it belongs only to Fritz. At least, that is what I think. But as I am looking around, I come across a small, framed illustration that does not look familiar to me. Is that your mom? It is a small portrait, but the woman featured in it makes me pause. Her hair is white as the clouds, her eyes a soft brown. Her smile is gentle and reminds me of... Fritz? I pick the framed portrait up and flip it over. There are words written on the back in a cursive slant. I read them aloud. Is it Adiuva? To my wife, you are the sun and I the world. I hope that I can continue to bask in your warmth for the rest of my days. The signature beneath takes me by surprise. Alcaster? Well, who did you think was going to sign it? Obviously. Uh-oh. I face the kitchen, my heart beating erratically in my chest as I set the portrait down. I am even more surprised when I notice Fritz standing behind me, holding a simple tray with a single teacup on it. His eyes stray to the floor, and I follow his gaze to see another teacup turned over and broken. Are you okay? Fritz lets out a nervous laugh.
I'm fine, Lucette. It was just a clumsy misstep.
He sets the tray down on the table, walks off, and returns with materials to clean up the shattered cup and spilled tea. When he is done, Fritz gestures absently at the remaining teacup. Though he is smiling at me, his gaze seems far away. He looks shaken. I take the cup of tea from him with some worry.
Sorry about that. You can have that cup and I'll go make myself another.
I cradle the cup of tea in my hands and gingerly take a sip. The tea is warm and soothing and helps relieve some of the tension in my body.
What do you think?
I think you need this tea more than I do. I don't know if I trust you to go make yourself another cup of tea. How about we just... Yeah, you can have... Or we can share, or something. Here.
You don't like it?
No, it's perfect. But I think you need it more than I do.
I'm fine, Lucette. I just accidentally tipped the tray and...
Sit down and drink, Fritz. Don't make me make it in order. Fritz's shoulders sag as he falls down into a chair at the table and takes a teacup from my hands. After some moments' hesitation, he begins to drink. 2 years ago, when I was stressed, Laura treated me to a mug of hot chocolate because it helped calm my nerves. Tea has a similar effect. Better? There you go. Fritz lowers the teacup and smiles apologetically.
I'm sorry.
No apologies are necessary, Fritz. But you obviously have something on your mind.
Have I really become so easy to read?
I can tell the difference between your clumsiness and your distress. I place my hand over his, and for a few moments, Fritz allows me to see past his usual facade. I am aware of the sadness in his eyes. When he does not speak, I move my hand away with a sigh. I glance back at the portrait that I had picked up earlier. To my knowledge, that portrait has never been displayed in this room. That wasn't here before, was it?
No, I just recently put it out. I found it in my father's room and decided to display it in here.
Fritz eyes the portrait with a sorrow so profound it makes my heart ache.
I don't really remember my mother's face, but I knew that was her the moment I saw her face. I'm sorry I reacted so strangely when you picked it up. My mind went blank when you read those words aloud. It's been a while since I've read them.
For a few moments, Fritz's eyes are far away. One of his hands forms a fist as he looks sullenly down at the table.
When you said my father's name. It's hard sometimes, remembering my father as someone who could actually love. His words on the back of the portrait remind me of the man he used to be.
Fritz and his father never seemed to get along. I never knew how terrible their relationship was until I learned that Alcaster was the one to curse Fritz. He may not have been the one to cast the magic, but he was the one that gave the command. And that is worse. I always doubted Alcaster loved Fritz. How could he when he was the one to curse him? Fritz leans back in his chair, a defeated expression on his face.
You know, sometimes I think I've become exactly like him. Like my father, I mean.
How do you figure that? I stare at him uncomprehending. What? Fritz, you are nothing like Alcaster.
Are you sure? I used to believe that all knights were righteous, and that the citizens of Angielle were flawlessly kind-hearted. My father told me that was a naive notion, and I always judged him for being so critical of people. I strove to prove him wrong.
And now?
Now, I think I understand what he meant when he said that people abuse kindness.
Fritz's expression is as dark and gloomy as the weather outside.
People are always looking for someone to hate. They hide it behind smiles and pleasantries, but in the shadows they plot and scheme and blame their hardships on others.
He looks up at me, and I can tell that he is referring to the witches who kidnapped me 3 days ago.
Witches, fairies, humans, they're all the same. They're all conniving in their own ways, no matter who or what they are.
He sounds like Mother.
You give them some power and they abuse it. You show them kindness and they walk all over you. People only bow their heads to those they fear.
Okay, now you're starting to sound like your dad. He breaks off suddenly. His hands are shaking, but whether from rage or shock, I cannot tell. Abruptly, he looks away.
You see, it sounds exactly like something my father would say.
Something his father would say, and something Varg would have said. Yeah. Has Fritz really felt that way all this time? I do not know what happened to Alcaster to make him so bitter. I do not know what happened to make him despise all those around him. But I do know about Fritz's circumstances. I know he has been pressured for a very, very long time. I know that he has given far more than he has ever received. And I know that sometimes he forces a smile on his face to hide his true feelings. I used to think Fritz was relentlessly optimistic, but the last 2 years have changed him. I walk over to him. He is still staring down at the table when I wrap my arms around his neck from behind.
I don't want to be like him.
His voice is just a whisper. You are not like him. Your father allowed hatred to consume his life, but you battle the compulsion relentlessly. He was pessimistic about everything, but you hide your negative feelings away in the hope that you can overcome them. You are strong, Fritz. Strong enough to shoulder your own burdens and to still carry mine on your back as well. You're the strongest person I know. I plant a kiss on the top of his head. Every time you feel like this, please come talk to me. I tell you about my concerns, and I want you to be able to speak to me, too. I pull away so that I can face him. Let me help you the same way you've helped me. Fritz looks up. Our eyes connect. The smile on his face does not reach his eyes.
Some knight in shining armor I am. I can't even remain optimistic for my princess.
Oh? I was under the impression that you were no longer a knight. His expression falls even further at that, and I immediately regret my words. I know, then, that there is more on Fritz's mind than he is telling me. I know, however, that he will not share any of it. Fritz always shuts down when he thinks he is inconveniencing me. The atmosphere in the room is heavy, and the rain does not help the mood any. It is impossible to cheer Fritz up in such a dismal place. I look up and focus on the rain drumming on the window pane. At first, my mind is blank, filled with nothing but the soft sounds of the rain. Then suddenly an idea occurs to me. I stand and flash a smile at Fritz. I am going outside.
No. Wait, Lucette!
I step outside before he can stop me. I'm catching raindrops in my tongue. Bleh. I kind of pictured him living out in the country somewhere, not in town, but okay. The moment I step outside, the rain cools my skin. It is coming down so heavily, my dress is soaked in mere minutes.
Lucette, what are you doing?
Fritz stands in the doorway, staring at me owlishly. He looks equal parts confused and amazed. I turn and laugh. What is it, old man? Are you afraid you will get wet if you follow me out here? Fritz is gaping at me. He looks like a fish out of water, which makes me laugh even harder. I prefer this look to the frown he was wearing earlier. Now if only I could get him to smile.
Of course not. But Lucette, you're going to get soaked.
I think it's a little too late for that, Fritz. Squelch, squelch. I turn and begin to walk away. Fritz chases after me. There is no one out in this rain. I do not have to worry about being approached. I break into a run. I have no idea how far I can get before Fritz closes the distance between us, but I feel that I need to get him away from that house. Inside, he becomes trapped with memories of people who are lost to him. He allows sadness to consume him.
Lucette, where are you going?
I duck into an opening between the trees. Can't catch me, Mr. Big Bad Wolf. My footsteps do not shatter the quiet reverie of the forest. In fact, the forest feels even more peaceful beneath the steady downpour. It is not long before I hear Fritz behind me. I have only just ducked beneath the branches of a looming tree when I feel his hand on my back. I turn and am shocked when I see the crooked grin on his face. I find myself backing into a tree before I can help it. Fritz draws closer and closer until that grin is mere inches away from my face. Well, that's nostalgic.
Well, well.
He is close enough that I can feel his breath on my cheeks. I shudder, and I'm not entirely sure if it's because of the rain or Fritz's expression.
Looks like you've been caught, Miss Runaway.
His smirk is short-lived. It soon fades into a frown so cold it makes my heart sink.
What will you do now? How do you plan on escaping?
I can see something in Fritz's eyes, something I've seen before. A challenge. I try throwing myself against him, but Fritz quickly stops my movement by pressing himself closer to me. I gasp, suddenly aware of the warmth of his body. Even beneath the soaked clothes, he radiates a lulling heat. I look up at him with determination, but falter when I notice the emptiness in his eyes. Rain trails down his skin, making it look as if there are tears coursing down his cheeks. Fritz? He sets his head on my shoulder. He is so close I can feel his heartbeat reverberating through my body.
Lucette, I can't lose you.
Fritz? Slowly, his fingers fall away from my wrists. He raises his head slightly, but his voice is nothing but a whisper.
If someone trapped you like this in an alley, if you weren't able to take out the dagger in time, if you were kidnapped and I wasn't with you...
He takes a deep, shaky breath.
If anything ever happened to you, I would never forgive myself.
I cannot help but recall what Fritz said about the dagger he gave me. He told me that it was his mother's. That the day she died, she did not take it with her. Was his mother killed? I think back to Fritz's anxiety, to the faraway look in his eyes when he discussed his father and mother. I don't understand, not completely, but... I put my hands on Fritz's chest and slowly, gently, push him away so that I can look into his eyes. You will never lose me. I hold his gaze with confidence. My friends died so that I could continue to hope for a better world. Those of us who survived have the obligation to keep that dream alive. I believe in you, Fritz. So please, believe in me. Fritz breathes out softly. Once again, I feel the warmth of his breath on my cheeks. I continue to look at him, waiting. Finally, the silence breaks, and he smiles at me softly. It is a small and fragile smile, but the honesty in it is relieving.
You really are something else, Lucette.
He pulls a strand of wet hair from my face and cups my face in his hand.
Yes, I trust you.
He bridges the gap between us in a heartbeat. Oh, that is beautiful. Holy cow, that is so beautiful. Okay, I think that has to win my favorite CG award so far. Holy mackerel. I'm a sucker for kisses in the rain. Gosh darn. Our lips meet, and despite the bitter cold of the air around me, I am suddenly warm. I do not protest when he slides his hand down the length of my back and to my waist. Our kiss, which starts small and hesitant, eventually grows deeper, bolder. The feeling of the rain on my skin fades completely as I focus on the sensation of his lips against my own, on the comforting and stable press of his body. When Fritz finally pulls away from me, his mischievous smile is enough to send a shudder of anticipation coursing through me.
Strange. I could have sworn you weren't a witch anymore, and yet I have the distinct feeling you've put me under a spell.
He twines his fingers through mine with a smile.
Have you had enough of this rain?
So long as you are feeling better, yes.
After that, who wouldn't?
I nudge him in the shoulder, but he just laughs merrily.
Let's return before you catch a cold.
The two of us make our way back through the forest and toward his home. So good. Once we are back inside, Fritz releases my hand and shakes his head, scattering raindrops over the floor. We get it, he's dog-like. We get it. Despite our best efforts to dry ourselves, we both still make puddles on the floor. Fritz claps a hand on my shoulder. His touch, even through the fabric of my clothes, sends electricity coursing through my body.
I can prepare a bath for you, Princess. That should help warm you up. Oh, sorry. I mean, Lucette.
I would prefer you keep me warm instead. Well, how bold. The words are slippery and are out of my mouth before I can regret them. Fritz stares at me, looking equal parts flustered and shocked. Then slowly, his lips begin to curl into a smile.
Is that an order?
Yes.
Well then, as you command, Your Highness.
He slides behind me and plants a kiss on the nape of my neck. Then, before I can react, he picks me up and walks toward his bedroom with a cocky smile on his face. Uh-huh.
This is actually a lot more convenient. I was wondering where I was going to find you a change of clothes, but now it looks like I needn't worry.
Such rain! He pushes the door of the bedroom open with his foot and walks me inside into a quiet and gentle darkness, punctuated only by the soft rattle of rain against the windows. The two of us spend some time in each other's company, laying close enough together to stay warm in the cold and silent home. By the time I return to the palace, the cold has abated and I am filled with a lingering and hopeful warmth. And quieter days ahead, I hope. Oh, thank goodness, that rain. How's one to enjoy cuddle time with that loud rain? It has been 3 days since the intense rainfall, thank you. 3 days since I very nearly spent the night in Fritz's home. I mean, he spent the night in his home plenty of times before when we were cursed, so. I would have probably slept the night away in his arms if not for the fact that I suspected the palace guard would come looking for me if I did not return. Fritz and I walked back to the palace the first opportunity we got, but that did not stop my family from worrying. Sorry. Ever since that day, Fritz has been sleeping in his room at the palace. Whether to be closer to me or to avoid going back to his home, I am not sure. Perhaps it is both. Fritz leans against my desk with a smile, calm and collected as usual.
I don't have much time before I have to meet with the king, but... You called me here because you had a special request, right? What can I do for you?
I sit up a little straighter on my bed, hoping that my gaze holds nothing but resolve. I want Fritz to take my next words seriously. I have been thinking about this ever since he gave me the dagger. Fritz, I would like for you to teach me something.
Teach you something?
I don't need to know how to hide when I got dagger. I'll know when to use the dagger and when to run and hide. Yeah, the dagger is not necessary for learning how to hide. Defending yourself, having a weapon would be helpful. I mean, technically you could defend yourself without a dagger as well. I'm just saying.
Defend yourself? Oh.
Understanding lights his face when I reach into my drawer and pull out the knife he gave me. I mentioned this before, but carrying around the knife is useless if I do not know how to use it. It is not just about using the knife, though. I would like to learn to protect myself even without the weapons. I think back to the moment Fritz captured me in the forest. He told me to free myself, and I was unable to do so. Even had I wanted to, I would have been unable to reach for the knife.
I'd rather you didn't have to use the knife at all.
And if I have to... I know how protective Fritz is. I know he does not want to hurt me or watch me be hurt, and that is why I believe he will give in to this request. Even something simple will help. I do not want to be a burden, Fritz. Not to you, and not to myself. I may no longer have magic, but that does not mean I am incompetent. Finally, Fritz relents. His sullen gaze slips into a smile.
I love your confidence, Lucette. It's inspiring. I will do anything to protect it. To protect you. So yes, I'll teach you the basics of defense. I only hope you'll never have to be in another situation where you have to use the techniques.
Thank you, Fritz.
You never need to thank me, Lucette. We'll do our practices in the forest. There you can learn both evasion and defense.
He stands up, and when he raises his eyebrows, I can see a familiar confidence, a challenge sparkling in his eyes. He steps forward and plants a quick kiss on my lips.
I'm looking forward to seeing you triumph.
I will triumph. I promise.
I believe it.
Fritz offers me one last smile before excusing himself to run the day's errands. Alright, sounds like a date?